Knox County students, my name is Jennifer Smitty and I teach 6th grade language arts at Gresham Middle School. And today I'm going to walk you through the Task 1 lesson for 6th grade for the Summer at Home series from Knox County Schools. If you have not already completed this lesson, I want you to pause the video and go to the Knox County Schools website, click on See All Resources, finish the lesson, and then you can come back and work through the lesson with me through the video. As I said before, if you haven't already completed the lesson, pause this video, work through the lesson, and then come back and we'll work through it together. Let's get started. There are a couple of resources available to you if you want some help with the video. You can turn on the closed captioning, you can adjust the playback speed, you can consider watching it in short clips and start and stop it as often as you like, or you could ask someone in your family to sit down and watch it with you, then you guys can talk about it together. The title of today's lesson is The Formality of It All, Style and Tone. And when I first read through the lesson, I thought style, and I thought about fashion, and I thought about we wear different types of clothes for different situations. Like for the prom, we're very formal in gowns and tuxes, and the ballpark, we're going to have shorts and a t-shirt on. So different styles or different types of clothing apply to different audiences and for different purposes. The same thing goes with tone of voice. I use an outside voice or we have an inside voice. So I want you to make connections to your real life as we walk through this lesson on style and tone in reference to writing. The learning targets for today are to analyze the purpose of formal style and tone, and then to write letters using both a formal and an informal tone. And I got to write those letters and that was kind of fun. So I can't wait to see what you wrote. If you look at the first vocabulary box, we're going to focus on 2 new words today. Hopefully you've already heard them in your language arts class. Tone is the attitude that a writer or speaker displays towards his or her subject. And then a formal style is a style of writing or speaking that is appropriate for formal communication, such as academics or business. School is considered academics. And I bet you've heard your teacher say, we need to use an academic voice in this setting. I say that to my kids all the time. In just a second, I'm going to read through a couple of sentences, and I want you to look at the word bank below and identify an adjective that describes the tone I'm using as I read these sentences. You're late. You're late. Look at the word bank and pick out a word or two, an adjective or two that describes the tone. And I'll show you some of my answers in a minute. Now here's a second sentence I want to share with you. I have something for you. I have something for you. I have a surprise for you. Find an adjective in the word bank that describes the tone of that sentence. So if you look at the box, I went ahead and highlighted some words so that would stand out to you. For the first sentence, which was you're late, I highlighted in yellow and I just said angry, sharp, urgent, or upset. And then for the second sentence, which was I have something for you, or I have a surprise for you, I highlighted happy and calm. I don't know if those were the same as yours or not, but just something to think about. So when you are writing an argumentative text, when you're trying to persuade someone that your claim is correct and you want them to shift their thinking over to yours, you need to select a tone that is appropriate for your audience. Explain why this statement makes sense. And we're going to look at this a little bit further in the lesson. If I'm trying to convince my parents that I want a new kitten, the tone you choose is going to contribute to whether or not you get what you want. Your tone is going to improve, the appropriate tone will improve your effectiveness. and I'm going to talk to you, my parents, differently than I would speak to my friends. My language is going to be a little more grammatically correct and proper with my parents, and it might be a little more casual with my friends. So when you think about your tone, or you're selecting a tone for an argument, you're also considering your audience, which we just referred to when I said parents versus friends. So think about the audience and purpose for each of the situations in the graphic organizer that's on the screen. You've already seen this. Which style of writing would be most appropriate for each situation? And we're looking at formal style or informal style. And a synonym for informal style would be casual. That's the one that keeps coming to my mind. I bet that's what you were thinking too. So if you look in the left-hand column, in the audience purpose box, it says you are writing an essay for a school or an exam. What would be the appropriate style? Formal or informal? You're writing a caption for a picture that you are posting on social media. Would that be formal or informal? You're writing a letter to your principal to convince him or her to fund a new sports team. Formal or informal? Here are the answers. How'd you do? Definitely posting a caption for Instagram would be informal, while the other two would be formal. So look at the examples. We're going to look at another graphic in just a second, and you've already looked at this. Look at the following examples of formal style and informal style, and what are the differences that you notice? Based on your analysis, try to write your own definitions of formal style and informal style and check them against a dictionary or glossary, and then complete the chart. But let's look at the chart first, okay? Let's just look at the formal column. What do you notice versus the informal column? Please refrain from talking. Will you be attending the dance this evening? Hello, how are you today? I noticed the word refrain and attending. Those are kind of formal. They're not kind of, they are more formal. And then if you look at the informal side, it says, hey, quit talking. Are you going to go to the dance later? Too much homework stinks. This sounds like how you might talk to your friends, or how I hear students talking to each other. So you should have thought about your definitions for formal versus informal. I'm going to show you mine. Oops. There they are. Formal style is a clean, professional method of writing that uses proper grammar. That's the official definition. And informal is a casual method of writing that mirrors language used in casual conversations, such as the way you would talk to your friends or your classmates. How are your definitions? Were they close? Good job. So now let's look at the chart again, and I have plugged in my answers, and I'm sure that you already have yours, so just take a minute to compare yours to mine. For hello, how are you today? That might be the way a teacher addresses you, but in the hallway, I hear students say, what's up? A student might say homework stinks, but a parent or a teacher might say having too much homework is stressful for students. I like the last one. He launched his bicycle off the ramp and flew through the air. That's more formal. He launched his bike off the ramp and caught some gnarly air. The word gnarly is considered slang. It's very casual. You'll hear me use that word a little bit later in this lesson, the word slang. It's not a bad word or a cuss word, it's just slang. It's very casual. In your packet or on the download, you also had this slide. So let's just read through this together. Because going back to the learning target, We're learning how to use formal versus informal style and selecting a tone and a style that is appropriate for our audience so that our arguments can be convincing. So it's important to maintain consistency in style and tone so readers can follow your ideas. Readers will be confused if your writing jumps back and forth between a formal and informal style. So the definitions, or here are some examples. Consistent formal style. You must adhere to the guidelines. Your cooperation will be noted and appreciated. Inconsistent formal style. You must adhere to the guidelines. It would be totally awesome if you do that. You can see that sentence has some of each, formal and informal. Here's consistent informal style. The speaker says we should stop using plastic bags. She gave some good reasons for this. Inconsistent informal style. The speaker suggests discontinuing the use of plastic bags. Her reasons were totally bogus. Which word jumps out to you as really informal? The word bogus. Use the following list of characteristics of formal style to keep your writing style consistently formal. So let's look at this next slide. And you should have already seen this before, and we're going to use it again in just a minute in another part of the lesson. So here are do's on the do list. Adhere to the rules of proper grammar and mechanics. I know you've heard that before. Use precise, specific diction. Use diction that is specific to the topic and precise for the audience. Diction is vocabulary and word choice. You've seen it on the rubric, and you've heard your teachers talk about it before, using domain-specific vocabulary and vocabulary that matches the task, the academic task. During the debate, the opponent provided several pieces of evidence to support her claim and refute her opponent's argument. The words that are in bold are very specific to this academic task, which is argumentation. So evidence, claim, and argument, and refute. If you look at the do not side, and you've heard this before in your language arts class, like we shouldn't use contractions in formal writing. Don't use slang words. You heard me say that a minute ago, like bogus or gnarly. Avoid non sequiturs, which are sentences that do not flow with the ideas being communicated by the rest of the paragraph. Or we usually say irrelevant sentences. When we go back and edit and revise, we mark out the irrelevant sentences. And they gave you an example. You can look at that again. So next, we were asked to rewrite the following paragraph in a formal style and tone. This original paragraph is informal, and I want to show you another slide. I went ahead and highlighted the words that I thought made it informal. I'm going to read a couple of sentences of it, and then we'll switch over to our revised version. Last month, this crazy guest speaker came to school. She presented several ideas for ways we could save water at home and at school. To be honest, I thought her ideas were way off the wall, and I didn't think they would fly anyway. But she asked us to implement at least 2 of her suggestions for 1 month, to journal about what we were doing and then to ping her. My family okayed my proposal, so for 1 month we all took showers and we ran the dishwasher and washing machine when they were full. We also cut the water when brushing our teeth. My dad recorded the water meter reading at the beginning and at the end of the month and compared them to the previous month. The results blew me away. We saved tons of water. I dropped her a note and she got right back to me. Now I'm telling all my friends to check out her website and get on her water-saving bandwagon. Did you notice the same things I noticed when you read that? One thing that jumped out at me were just the figures of speech. And we talk about figurative language in language arts class, but example like blew me away, and then water-saving wagon. I just thought, and way off the wall. Those are all figurative language. And they're not as formal as you need to be when you're writing an argument. Now let's look at the revised paragraph. See if this one's better. Last month, we had a guest speaker at school. She presented several ideas for ways we could save water at home and at school. At first, I was skeptical that her ideas were practical and workable, but she asked us to implement at least 2 of her ideas for a month, to journal about our efforts, and then to email her a summary of our activities and results. My family agreed to my proposal, so for 1 month, we all took shorter showers, and we ran only the dishwasher and washing machine when they were full. We also turned off the water when brushing our teeth. My dad recorded the water meter readings at the beginning and the end of the month and compared them to the previous months. The results were a pleasant surprise. Our water consumption for the month was significantly less than it had been for the prior month. I emailed the speaker and she quickly responded. Now I am encouraging my friends to look at her website and ways to implement her ideas. Much more polished, much less casual. It's very noticeable. So use the graphic organizer to help you analyze the tone and style of the homework article below. So we have a short homework article. I'm going to pull that up. And then we're going to go back and fill in the chart or look at the filled-in chart. This is an excerpt, which is a piece from a larger article called How Much Homework Do American Kids Do? It was written by Julia Ryan. And it was originally published in The Atlantic, which is a magazine, a news magazine. Math classes have homework the most frequently. The MetLife study found that 70% of students in grades 3 to 12 had at least 1 homework assignment in math. 62% had at least 1 homework assignment in language arts class. And 42% had at least 1 in science class. Regardless of how much homework kids are actually doing every night, most parents and teachers are happy with the way things are. 60% of parents think that their children have the right amount of homework, and 73% of teachers think that their school assigns the right amount of homework. Students, however, are not necessarily on board. 38% of students in grades 7 through 12 and 28% of students in grades 3 through 6 report being very often or often stressed out by their homework. I wonder how you feel about your homework or if you agree with this article. But let's go back to the graphic organizer. We're supposed to identify the purpose and then cite some examples of the formal style. First of all, did you think it was formal? And then why do you think that Julia Ryan wrote this article? What was her purpose? I'll show you what I put. I wrote that her purpose was to explain that most parents and teachers believe students have the right amount of homework. And then examples of formal style, the thing that really jumped out to me was the use of statistics or numbers and facts. And so that's what I wrote in the box. And I cited an example. And another thing that jumped out at me was the absence of casual language or slang. It was very formal. It was written for a news magazine for an audience of adults, and that's how it read. Then we have this question that you were supposed to respond to. And I used the race strategy to respond to the question. Is the tone of the homework article appropriate for the audience and the purpose, and why? And I've used different colors to highlight my response. The blue is the R and the A of the race strategy. The white is more of a transition section. The yellow is the C, and then the green is the E for the race strategy. And I believe that this has been used in earlier lessons, and a lot of language arts teachers use this lesson, and it's just a good way, a good strategy for organizing your writing in a constructed response answer. Restate, answer, cite, and explain. So this was my response, and I'm anxious to see how it compares to your response. The tone of the homework article is appropriate for the audience and purpose because the style of the article was formal, which matches the style and the audience of the news magazine in which it was published. There's my R and my A. The purpose of the article is to illustrate that parents and teachers feel like students receive the correct amount of homework. The author quoted statistics to support this claim. For example, most parents and teachers are happy with the way things are. 60% of parents think that their children have the right amount of homework, and 73% of teachers think their school assigns the right amount of homework. So that's the majority. The use of statistics rather than opinion is formal and corresponds with the purpose and audience. In addition, the author's use of correct grammar and avoidance of casual language or slang lends credibility to the claim and is appealing to the audience. How did that compare to your response? I can already see some things that I can improve and revise in my response and make it even better. Teachers do that too. So let's check your understanding. We are determining or analyzing the appropriate use of formal style and tone in argumentative writing. So why is it important to use a formal style and tone in argumentative writing? What happens to your argument when you don't maintain a consistent formal style and tone? Let's go back to that convincing your parents that you need a new pet. What do you think is going to be more effective in your argument? And if you choose a method that's not effective, in hindsight, you can look back at it and think, what could I have done differently? How could I have approached it differently so that I could win my argument and get the pet that I want? I did respond to the Quickwrite, and I'll show you that quickly. A Quickwrite is, in my classroom, I usually say you have like 8 minutes, and I set a timer. It might even be 3 minutes. And you just you don't have to follow the structure of a race response and use the race writing strategy. You can just kind of free write your thoughts. So in this case, here's my Quickwrite. It's important to use a formal style and tone in argumentative writing because formality lends credibility to a claim, and the audience is more likely to listen if the tone is serious and the author appears knowledgeable. When a person does not use a formal style or tone, the audience may become impatient and stop reading or paying attention, or just dismiss the claim as not credible. Also, shifting between formal and informal can confuse the audience, and if the audience is confused, they are less likely to be persuaded. Those were just my thoughts. So now we're going to finish with an argumentative writing prompt. You are trying to convince your principal to change a school rule or policy. For example, cell phone usage, school starting times. Write 2 letters to experiment with tone and formal style. For letter 1, write a short letter to your principal using informal style and a friendly tone. It's a casual letter. And for the letter 2, transform your first letter to use formal style and a businesslike tone. Be sure to state a clear claim and support it with clear reasons and relevant evidence using reliable and credible resources. Pay attention to style and tone, and provide a concluding statement that wraps up your argument. Be prepared to share both your letters with your peers, or in this case, you can look at your letters, and I'm going to show you my letters, and you can kind of make that comparison. So I wrote 2 letters, and in looking at the instructions, well, I'll just let you be the judge and see if you think I met the task. I followed the instructions. So here's my informal letter. What's up, Principal Adams? The other day we were talking about the possibility of allowing students to use their cell phones during lunch. Have you given that any more thought? I talked to my peeps and we all agreed that allowing us to use our phones during lunch would be really dope and would brighten our spirits and help us focus more during class. If we're able to check our social media throughout the day, we won't be as tempted to sneak a peek during a bathroom or a locker break. Anyway, I hope you consider letting us check out our devices during lunch. Talk soon, Brian. What makes this letter informal? The way I started it, the greeting, the way I closed it. Brian who? Did some other words jump out at you? Peeps, sneak a peek, dope. All of those are very casual and even slang. Do you think Principal Adams is going to let us use our cell phones if that's the approach I take, if that's the style and tone I use to persuade him? Probably not. Well, let's look at the next one. This is where I rewrote the letter and I highlighted in yellow what I changed from my first letter. So see what you think. Did I make it more formal? Do you think this letter has a better chance of persuading the principal? Let's look. Dear Principal Adams, thank you for speaking with me the other day regarding the possibility of allowing students to use their cell phones during lunch. I spoke with my friends and we all agreed that allowing us to use our phones during lunch would be a positive move and would strengthen the administration's relationship with the students. We also believe it would help us focus more during class because we will have had a chance to check and send messages. If we are able to check our social media during the day, we won't be as tempted to use our phones without permission during a bathroom or locker breaks. Thank you for taking this change into consideration. Sincerely, Brian Brown. Which letter do you think is going to be more persuasive? The first letter or the second letter? I hope that you are starting to see that the style and the tone that you choose to communicate with, whether in written or verbal form, impacts your effectiveness at persuading someone. So finally, looking ahead beyond this lesson, I want you to analyze tone in something you do every day. Think about tone and style as you read books of choice, watch TV, play video games, watch movies, or just engage with your families. Think about different characters, different settings. I imagine, I don't know much about Fortnite, but I imagine that the tone is very different than it would be in a classroom or that it would be in the way you speak to your parents. What impact does tone have on you, the audience, in movies or games or books? And what influence does your tone have on others? And then if you'll look at the little orange box that was on your lesson that you had from Knox County, read and connect. Look for examples of formal and informal style used in your independent reading. In what context is each style used? Who is the speaker? Who is the audience? What is the subject under discussion? Record some examples of tone in your reader writer notebook and log your responses to the questions for each. So, moving beyond this lesson, I want you just to be aware of the tone of voice you use, the tone of voice that others use, who the audiences are for those tones, and whether those tones and styles are effective or not in those situations. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope that it's helped you have a better understanding of tone and formal style and its effectiveness in argumentation. And I will see you in a future lesson. Thanks.